single day, I'm gonna make something great.
Hello, welcome to my channel. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already done so. I would really appreciate it. And for those of you who are new to this channel, you are so welcome, and I appreciate you guys joining. I want to talk to you guys today. Actually, I'm going to do a story time. It's going to be a little bit of love, or probably a lot of love, a little bit of paranormal, and a little bit of the help through synchronicity of the ancestors. Before I get into the story time, I just want to give you guys a little background on me and a little bit of background of my life. As a lot of you guys probably already know, I was not raised by my parents. I was raised by my paternal grandmother, who taught me so much about my ancestors. She taught me so much about culture and just everything that I know. My grandmother led the way for me to the understanding that I have now. I never knew about my mother's side of the family because, as I said, I was raised by my father's mother. My father's mother taught me so much Western African culture that I, at the time, didn't realize that's what it was. I just assumed it was just something that she understood, something that she was bringing to the table on her own. I didn't realize growing up that she was raised by her grandmother, who had been enslaved in this country, and some of her ancestors were enslaved in Barbados. I never knew the culture that my grandmother was lending me, giving me, was actually ancestral knowledge. So I was always curious about my mother's side of the family. After I became an adult and my kids were pretty much grown, or they were older, I met my oldest sister, and she has taught me so much about our culture, our ancestry on our mother's side of the family. I even learned that my mother's mother, my maternal grandmother, did what I'm doing now. She considered herself somewhat of a shaman, somewhat of an energy worker, somewhat of a psychic. And I never knew that. And it was to my astonishment that I had so much in common with my grandmother and my great-grandmother. I also learned that I had Native American ancestry on my mother's side of the family. It's funny how within our DNA, there are certain codes, and I'm not sure if I'm using the right terminology here, but sometimes we just know, or at least I do. I've always known certain things about my ancestors. They always sort of were a part of who I am. You know, if you can inherit diabetes, you can inherit heart disease and certain cancers from our parents, our grandparents. We can inherit other things from our ancestors as well. And I believe, my way of thinking is that we can also inherit certain things that they were involved in. We can inherit some of that knowledge, because some of the things that I have figured out and that I actually know, I don't even know how I know. I just know because it's in me to know. And I'm assuming that everyone has that. You just know. And I hope I'm not being dramatic or confusing you guys, but sometimes you just know. You just know what you feel. You just know who you are. You just know who your ancestors were. And I've always felt a connection to my ancestors on both sides of my family. Even though I never met them, all of them, I still could feel their presence within me. After saying this, I'm gonna let you guys in on a very special sisterhood that I found in my life. It's story time. It was a time in my life. You guys, I always try to stay positive, but this particular time in my life, I didn't see a whole lot of positive things. I didn't feel very hopeful. So much was going wrong, and I could not seem to grasp the positive end of anything. I just simply felt almost like a victim. I had to stay in a hotel because where I was living, there was some things going on and we couldn't live there temporarily. And so I had to move in a hotel. And this particular day, I was fed up. I felt like I'm never going to be able to go back home. I'm never going to be able to feel normal again. I'm just fed up. And I was walking, and back then I used to smoke. I don't smoke anymore, but I was walking around the grounds of the hotel, and I was getting angrier and frustrated. And when is all this nonsense going to end? I'm frustrated. So after walking around a couple times, I decided to sort of plant myself in the front of the hotel on a bench and just smoking one cigarette after the other. I'm, hoping that could somehow ease my frustration. Needless to say, it didn't. But I was in a place in my mind of getting comfortable with this frustration. It had been so familiar, so I began to accept it and embrace it. It was comfortable. It was familiar. And then I noticed out of my peripheral vision coming toward me. And I knew she was ready to talk, and I was trying to tune her out. I did not want to converse with this lady. The closer she walked toward me, the more my feelings began to change. I began to feel like an old friend, a family member, had sat next to me. She sat next to me, kind of close. And then it began to irk me again. Why is this woman sitting so close to me? Well, the bench wasn't that big, and she didn't have the hang-ups that I had, apparently. She lit her cigarette, and we both sat there and smoked, and she turned and she looked at me and she said, "I bet you're a spiritual person, aren't you?" I thought, oh, geez, here we go. Yes, I'm spiritual. I'm spiritual. And she said, "Let me introduce myself." And she told me her name, and I told her my name. And the more she began to speak to me, the more I shifted my attention toward her physical body. And within 20 minutes of meeting this woman, I knew I had met my sister. I didn't want to say anything at first because I thought, geez, this is weird. What kind of mood swing is this? I didn't even want the lady sitting next to me. Now, 20 minutes later, she's my sister. Well, she began to speak a language to me that I think only the two of us understood. It's really hard for me to explain to people the love that I had for this woman and the love that I still have for her. She is my sister, and the ancestors made sure the two of us were together. She was traveling with her husband across the country from Portland, Oregon. And somehow, some way, I felt comfort in her presence. After about an hour and a half, we were yakking, and before we knew it, we found we had so many things in common. And I told her I'm a psychic, and I try to have a positive attitude. I'm a psychic, and yeah, do you want a reading? And as soon as I said that, as soon as I sort of put that call to action out there, I began to see or feel a little blonde-haired female around her. A blonde-haired female, and I felt like this female was wearing a wig. I felt like this female had a strong connection to my new sister. And I began telling my sister about this person that I felt was around her. And she told me that she had recently lost her daughter, who had lost a battle with cancer. And I explained to her that I had recently lost my son to a battle of Duchenne muscular dystrophy. They were both young. They were both a part of us, and we just connected. She taught me about the number 1111. She taught me the proper way to hug, heart to heart. She taught me so much. She's enriched my life so much. I'm so grateful to her. So she told me, well, let me back up a little bit. Her husband came through the door, and he was, looking for his wife, like, where did she go? And he said, well, you've been gone, an hour and a half, 2 hours. I hoped you didn't get kidnapped. And we all laughed. She introduced me to her husband. She said, this is my sister. And even though he didn't know me from a hole in the wall, and neither did she, and I wasn't her biological, so-called biological blood sister, we shared a sisterhood, and her husband never questioned it. He just said, well, nice to meet you. And we kind of looked at each other because they were getting ready to leave. They were getting ready to go back home to Oregon, and we just kind of looked at each other, and we just kind of agreed that we would see each other again. This would not be our last meeting. Somehow we would have to stay in touch. We kind of exchanged information, and we went on with our lives. I never was able to dismiss that situation, that meeting. I never could get it out of my system. So I went to work that day, and I noticed, and I never noticed before, but I noticed that the road that led to my job was 11. And I thought about what my new sister had told me about the number 1111 and what it meant. Then, when I came in, opened the door to my job, my coworker was wearing a shirt, a gray shirt. It was kind of light gray, and it had some designs, and her shirt said 1111. And then I just kind of looked the way I'm looking now, like, okay. And I stepped outside on my break, and I saw a bus go by that said a number 11. I said, perhaps my sister was right. The universe is showing me, yes, everything is in alignment, and everything will be okay. You'll get home, everything will be fine. So a couple of weeks later, I got a call and I was able to go back home, and one of the workmen that was around the house, I asked him what time it was. I don't even know why I asked him. He looked at his watch. He said, oh, it's 11 after 11. I thought, yeah, I get it. So, in closing, I just wanted to share this story with you guys, a story of synchronicity, a story of love, a story of hope, a story of the ancestors making sure that everything is okay. Not perfect, but it's okay. It's like a nod. You're not by yourself. You're not alone. Everything is okay. It's been years and years and years since I first met my sister. We've seen each other since then. Her and her husband have visited me since then, and I miss her, and I just wanted to share the special story to you guys. Now, I wanted to wish you guys not only the best of the best, but just to give you guys a little bit of something to kind of look out for. You pick a number that's right for you, that you feel a connection to. You pick a color that's right for you, or a couple of colors that are right for you, that feel familiar, that feel warm, that feel like love. You find those things. You live your life. Don't look for it. Synchronicity will find its way into your life. Let me know in the comments section, you guys, if you've ever experienced any type of coincidences or any types of meeting people that you knew before, that you have an instant connection with. Let me know. Until then, you guys, I'm wishing you the best of the best, and I'm sending you guys love and light, and to my sister, infinity.